Prabhuji, Dandat Pranam.
Hare Krishna. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. So today we'll be discussing from Bhagavad-gītā, 13th chapter, 3 verses, 13, 14, 15. जगन्नाथ बलदेव रमाई की जय, नरसिंह भगवान की जय, पंचतत्व की जय, षड गोस्वामी की जय, गुरु परंपरा की जय, श्री प्रभुपाद की, श्री गुरुदेव हरि बोल। ज्ञानतिमिरान्धस्य ज्ञानाञ्जनशलाकया चक्षुरुन्मीलितं येन तस्मै श्रीगुरवे नमः। नमो विष्णुपादाय कृष्णप्रेष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमते भक्तिवेदान्त स्वामिनिति नामिने। नमस्ते सारस्वते देवे गौरवाणी प्रचारिणे निर्विशेष शून्यवादी पाश्चात्य देशतारिणे। जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासादि गौर भक्त वृंदा। हरे कृष्णा 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 हरे हरे, हरे राम 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 हरे हरे। So 13.13. ज्ञेयं यत्तत् प्रवक्ष्यामि यज्ञात्वामृतम् अश्नुते अनादिमत्परं ब्रह्म न सत्तन्नासदुच्यते। ज्ञेयं यत्तत् प्रवक्ष्यामि यज्ञात्मामृतम् अश्नुते अनादिमत्परं ब्रह्म न सत्तन्नासदुच्यते। Translation by Divine Srila Prabhupada ki jai. I shall now explain the noble, knowing which you will taste the eternal Brahman, the spirit, beginningless and subordinate to me, lies beyond the cause and effect of this material world. 13.14. Sarvata panipadam tat sarvatokshishiro sarvata shrutimaloke sarvam avritya tishtati sarvata panipadam tat sarvatokshishiro sarvata shrutimaloke sarvam avritya tishtati. Translation by Shiva Prabhupada ki jai. Everywhere are his hands and legs, his eyes, heads and faces, and he has ears everywhere. In this way, the super soul exists, pervading everything. Jai Shri Prabhupada. 13.15. Sarvendriya gunabhasam sarvendriya vivarjitam asaktam sarva brichaiva nirgunam gunabhoktra. Sarvendriya gunabhasam sarvendriya vivarjitam asaktam sarva brichaiva nirgunam gunabhoktra. Translation by Divine Srila Prabhupada ki jai. The super soul is the original source of all senses, yet he is without senses. He is unattached, although he is the maintainer of all living beings. He transcends the modes of nature, and at the same time, he is the master of all the modes of material nature. Jai Shri Prabhupada ki jai. So let us try to understand and try to learn some lessons from these 3 verses. It's a wonderful chapter to learn. See, in the six chapters, in the middle 6 chapters, that is chapter 6 up to 12, Krishna, he concluded his description of Bhakti Yoga. Then in chapters 13 to 18, he describes Jnana Yoga. Now one may ask the question, if Bhakti is the culmination of a yoga ladder, then why is Jnana presented after the section on Bhakti? So understanding the connection between this Bhakti and Jnana sections, it will help to reveal us the reason for what it is. See, in the verse 12.7 in Bhagavad-gītā, Krishna promised to save his devotees from the path of birth and death. So this chapters 13 to 18, it fulfills this promise by supplying the philosophical knowledge necessary to extricate oneself from the material entanglement. And this section from 13 to 18 is called the Jnana section. But in truth, the entire Bhagavad-gītā is Bhakti. The first 6 chapters discuss how to achieve Bhakti through one's works, that is Karma Yoga. The last 6 chapters discuss how to achieve bhakti through knowledge. So the middle 6 chapters discuss bhakti itself. So Jnana, it has its use in assisting our detachment from the Maya and the subsequent attachment to Krishna. So when we utilize the knowledge as a means to attain devotion, it becomes part of bhakti. Without the touch of bhakti, both karma and jnana are useless. So this is another reason why the discussion of bhakti comes in the middle of Bhagavad-gītā, where it can remain in contact with both karma and jnana. And therefore it lends some value. See, the beginning of this chapter, the first and second verse, Arjuna is asking Krishna. He asks 6 questions. He wanted to know, number 1, Prakriti, the nature. Then Purusha, the enjoyer. The field, the knower of the field. Knowledge and object of knowledge. And Krishna replies, he says that this body, O son of Kunti, is called the field. And one who knows this body is called the knower of the field. So from verse number 1 to 7 in this chapter, 13th chapter, so Arjuna is asking 6 questions, right? And just now we saw. And Krishna explains the field of activities and the knower of the field. And 13.8 to 12, Krishna explains the process of knowledge and liberation. And this is actually answering the 5th question. That is of the knowledge. And 13 to 19, Krishna explains the object of knowledge. That is the 6th question. No? So the soul can know the super soul, the ultimate object of knowledge. So only devotees can understand the field of activities. What is the field of activities? Actually, it is the body. And the process of knowledge of both the soul and the super soul can be understood only by the devotees. So in the 14th verse, 13.14, super soul is all pervading. It is given, right? Prabhupada very strongly confirms that this verse, 13.14, which refers to the all pervading, describes the super soul and not the living entity. And we saw in the translation itself, the super soul has hands, legs, eyes, ears, heads, and faces everywhere. So super soul is all pervading. And it is, the purport Prabhupada gives the analogy, sun is all pervading by diffusing the unlimited rays. So in Krishna, it exists all the unlimited individual divinities, right? From Brahma to the smallest ant. And the purport of 13.14 proves and talks about super soul, not the individual soul. The individual soul cannot claim that he has legs, hands everywhere, right? And if you think that, then it is effect of ignorance. Individual soul cannot extend his hands and legs everywhere, not possible. Whereas the Supreme Soul can extend without limit. We saw in 9.26 Bhagavad-gītā, Patram Pushpam Phalam Toyam. Krishna accepts. He is there far away in Goloka. But how can he accept that much? So he doesn't have any limit. He can extend. And even in Brahma Samhita, Goloka eva nivasati akilatma, right? That's also given beautifully in this purport. So this verse 13.14 very important. It explains the Lord's all-pervading nature. Sarvata pani padam tat, sarvata akshikshiro bhukham, sarvata shutimal loke, sarvam avritya tishtati. Everywhere are his hands and legs, his eyes, heads and faces, and he has ears everywhere. In this way, the super soul exists, pervading everything. So in the wonderful purport to this verse, Srila Prabhupada says, the Supreme is different from the individual soul. We are all individual souls, but Supreme is different. The Supreme Lord can extend his hand without limit, whereas the individual soul cannot. Can only up at certain level, right? That's why in Bhagavad-gītā, Krishna says that if anyone offers him a flower, fruit, or little water, he accepts it. So if the Lord is far away, far distance, how can he accept this? So this is the omnipotence of Krishna. Even though he is situated in his own abode, far away from the earth, he can extend his hand to accept whatever anyone offers. That is his potency. See, many years ago, there lived a devotee by the name Dasya Bauri, who hailed from a low caste. And he was living in a village called Baligram near Puri. Jagannath Puri, everybody knows, right? So in those days, members from his caste were not allowed inside Jagannath Puri temple. He was poor and uneducated, and was having an unflinching faith in the Lord. So once a Brahmana from his village, He was going to Jagannath Puri. So Dasya, he asked him to offer coconut to Lord on his behalf and to bring it back to him if Lord rejects. The Brahmana proudly laughed at Dasya's childish foolishness, but said he would offer the coconut. So once he was inside the temple, the Brahmana held the coconut before Jagannatha and repeated Dasya's message. Dasya Bauri has sent this coconut for you. Please accept it, otherwise I will take it back. Suddenly Jagannath extended his arm from the altar and took the coconut directly out of the Brahmana's hands. It was greatest surprise to the Brahmana. Now Dasya Bauri's sincere devotion was so great, the Lord personally accepted his indirect offering. So since the Lord is situated in the heart of every living entity, in his Paramatma feature, he could see Dasya's strong desire to please him. And so he accepted the simple offering. Sorry. So on another occasion, Dasya Bauri went to Puri carrying a large basket of mangoes for the Lord. So when he reached the Lion's Gate entrance to the temple, a group of Brahmanas started fighting over who would take the mangoes inside the temple to offer to the Lord. Now Dasya Bauri told them that he did not need anybody's help to offer the mangoes to the Lord. And the Brahmanas were bewildered because they were proud of their position, right? And they did not think the low-caste devotee is eligible to offer anything to the Lord. Now Dasya's faith was unshaken. And he simply stood back a short distance and focused his gaze on the Nila Chakra, the large wheel on top of the temple. In that way, he saw the form of the Lord. Because the name, form, and paraphernalia of the Lord are non-different from him. So Nila Chakra is non-different from Jagannatha. So when Dasya held up the two mangoes and showed them to the Nila Chakra, like this you are showing, they disappeared. So Dasya repeatedly offered mangoes in this way until his basket was empty. Now a crowd gathered around Dasya and watched the mangoes disappear as if by magic. So when Dasya told the Brahmanas that Jagannatha had eaten the mangoes, they rushed into the temple and found mango skins and seeds lying all around the altar. Mango juice was dripping down Jagannath's smiling face. The Brahmanas then understood Dasya Bauri was a great devotee of the Lord, and their pride vanished. So Dasya Bauri's offerings, they showed the world the Lord looks only for the faith and love, not high birth. So Lord is omnipotent, omnipresent, omniscient, unlimited, not only in his form and appearance, but also in his magnanimous nature. So even if people of the world rejects someone, he is willing to extend his loving reciprocation to his dear devotees, irrespective of caste or creed. So that is the beauty of this. From this pastime, we can understand, right? It doesn't matter which caste, low caste and all. But with love and devotion, if he offers it, Krishna extends his hand to accept it. See in the next verse, that is the 15th verse. I think I will share that Prabhupada is so beautiful. You can just read it through. There's nothing to say out of that. Prabhupada is given also beautifully under. So this is the 15th verse, right, which we read, where it says, the super soul is the original source of all senses, yet he is without senses. If he is unattached, although he is the maintainer of all living beings, he transcends the modes of nature. At the same time, he is the master of all the modes of material nature. So please hear the purport very carefully. Purport with Prabhupada ki jai. The Supreme Lord, although the source of all the senses of the living entities, doesn't have material senses like they have. So we have senses, but it is material. But for the Supreme Lord, it's totally different. So actually, the individual souls have spiritual senses, but because we are conditioned, in conditioned life, they are covered with material elements. And therefore, the sense activities are exhibited through matter. The Supreme Lord's senses are not so covered. His senses are transcendental and are therefore called nirguna. Guna means the material modes. But his senses are without material covering. It should be understood that his senses are not exactly like ours. Although he is the source of all our sensory activities, he has his transcendental senses which are uncontaminated. So this is very nicely explained in the Shweta Swatara Upanishad 3.19, in the verse, Apani Pado Javano Grahita. The Supreme Personality of Godhead has no hands, which are materially contaminated. But he has his hands and accepts whatever sacrifice is offered to him. So that is the distinction between the conditioned soul and the super soul. See, he has no material eyes, but he has eyes. Otherwise, how could he see? He sees everything, past, present, and future. He lives within the heart of the living being. And he knows what we have done in the past, what we are doing now, and what is awaiting us in the future. So this is also confirmed in Bhagavad-gītā. He knows everything, but no one knows him. It is said that the Supreme Lord has no legs like us, but he can travel throughout the space because he has spiritual legs. In other words, the Lord is not impersonal. He has his eyes, legs, hands, and everything else. And because we are part and parcel of the Supreme Lord, we also have these things. But his hands, legs, eyes, and senses are not contaminated by material nature. Bhagavad-gītā also confirms that when the Lord appears, he appears as he is by his internal potency. He is not contaminated by the material energy because he is the Lord of material energy. In the Vedic literature, we find that his whole embodiment is spiritual. He has his eternal form called Satchidananda Vigraha. He is full of all opulence. He is not the proprietor of all wealth and the owner of all energy. He is the most intelligent and is full of knowledge. So these are some of the symptoms of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. If anybody asks what are the symptoms of Supreme Personality of Godhead, these are the symptoms beautifully given by Prabhupada. So he is a maintainer of all living entities and the witness of all activity. So as far as we can understand from the Vedic literature, the Supreme Lord is always transcendental. Although we do not see his head, face, hands, or legs, he has them. And when we are elevated to the transcendental situation, we can see the Lord's form. So due to materially contaminated senses, we cannot see his form. Therefore, the impersonalists who are still materially affected cannot understand the personality of Godhead. Jai Srila Prabhupada ki jai. So this is a beautiful way. So the all-pervading nature of the Supreme Soul is given. So the super soul, he knows all the bodies, whereas the individual soul knows only about his own body. He cannot know about the other person's body, right? So Krishna is that way is all-pervading, and he knows what is the desire, intention, the motive in the heart of each individual, and accordingly he reciprocates. So very nice lessons we could learn from these three verses. So more and more we said. So thank you very much for Madhaji. I'll stop here. Grantara Srimad Bhagavad-gītā ki Jai Srila Prabhupada ki Ananta Koti Vaishnav. Vancha kalpataru vich kripa sindhu bhaya vicha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavibhyo. Hare Krishna. Okay. Thank you, Shri Prabhu. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. Dandvat Pranam.